What's going on, guys? John Hasselbauer here from thelines.com. It is not only WGC Match Play Week, but it's also Corales Puntacana Championship Week, aka my Super Bowl. I went to Punta Cana this past December, as soon as the off season started, as soon as the RSM Classic was over. Vacation there and spent one afternoon playing golf at Corales, picked up a little bit of merch, picked up a little bit of knowledge, and hopefully that was an investment of my time that turns out into some outright winnings. I need something to justify the greens fee rate because it is excessive. If you are in Punta Cana and you are just looking to play golf, it's probably not the best bang for your buck. In fact, it definitely is not. But it is an experience to play a PGA Tour course. And it's helpful for weeks like these where I feel like there's very limited content being put out about the opposite field events. The DraftKings field sizes are probably not as appealing as we would like them to be. And there's no stroke scan, so it's actually kind of hard to paint a picture of what's important by just looking through the leaderboard. So obviously I didn't play from the Champions Tees. They wouldn't let me do that. Even if I wanted to, which I definitely did not want to on vacation. The championship tees are over 7,600 yards. So I played probably closer to 71,000, 7,100, not 1,000. And learned a lot about the course, I would say, just being out there. I will say on the whole topic of like rolling the ball back, that by just having the pros play this course from as far back as you can stretch the course, that is essentially doing what the ball rollback is doing, and it modifies the playing field so that if I'm playing from 7,200 and they're hitting the ball much farther than me, it actually is kind of like a similar experience as far as like the length of this course. So I think it actually is going to correlate pretty well to what I saw. And I guess I'll just kick off with my experiences playing at Corales. So 7,600 yards as a par 72, and I'll actually just pull up the preview article here as I walk through it, just so that we have some of the course specs in the background. But yeah, 7,670 yards is, I believe, the longest yardage on the PGA Tour for the regular tournaments outside of the majors. But it's not a bomber's course. And if you look at the past list of winners, which we have right here with the event coming onto the schedule in 2018, Ramey, Damon, McDowell, and Garnett are some of the shortest hitters on tour. Swafford is a bomber and the lone exception there. But you look at that and you're like trying to do the math. That doesn't seem right. That's 7,600 yards. And all of these plotters are winning. So what's the deal there? And that's basically what I went to this course trying to figure out. And I think I understand why that is now. So long course, past Palm throughout. The rough is pretty negligible. I'm sure the rough will be more grown out in tournament week. The greens are very slow. It's past Palm. It's always going to be that way. And it's incredibly windy. I would say I was there on a moderate day, and I asked the caddies this when I was there. And it was picking up. It was gusting for sure, but it wasn't like a prevailing wind throughout. And I asked the caddies, they were like, yeah, this is nothing compared to the worst we've seen it in tournament week. And it does seem like it's going to be pretty bad this week. So I don't even know if it's worth looking at wind splits because it's just going to be constant coastal winds the entire time. What does that mean? Well, a lot of the greens are positioned on the coast where you're teeing up towards the coastline, if that makes sense. Like the greens are more exposed than the tee boxes are. So it's really a glorified second shot course. Even if you hit it far, everybody's going to have a difficult approach into just very windy greens is the best I could describe it. And it's past Palm, it's spongy. So it's not like a tight runoff situation. But they're tabletop greens where you're just getting a lot of these, like, if you just miss the green, it trickles down and you have these awkward, like 20-yard chip flip wedges and stuff. So I think from that perspective, Kapalua is a great comp for this. The problem is everybody who's playing in this event is not good enough to get in the Century Tournament of Champions. So I think we would see more overlap if the same field played both courses, but we don't. So without that comp, I would say maybe like a Port Royal is a little bit of a better comp. That's where the Bermuda Championship is. That is a kind of the opposite, where it's a very short course, but bombers have done well because it's so driver heavy. This course is super driver heavy. There's no forced layups whatsoever. The fairways are massive, and the rough doesn't really matter. I can't tell you how many times I stepped up, had a wide open fairway in front of me, sliced the hell out of it, and still was in play, whether like just off the fairway or at some good angle. So, distance, sure, a little bit of an advantage, but I would say 3 of the 4 par 5s are not reachable. 2 of them are over 600 yards, 2 of the longest on tour, with the 12th and 14th there. I believe it's 12 that I said is like the hardest par 5 I've ever played in my life, because I got all of it off the tee. I still had 300 plus yards to go. I hit a perfect 3-wood. I had about 70 yards in still. And it's this 2-tiered green where they tuck the pin on the back, and anything you hit in the middle of the green funnels back to you. Anything you hit over the green falls off this tabletop behind it. So you kind of are like forced to lay up and give yourself like a really long uphill, dramatic, 40-foot putt. And I bogeyed it, and I thought I played the hole perfectly, and I left that hole. I was like, I really like couldn't have played that much better. But I guess that's a good golf hole or a really frustrating one. Either way, that's going to be interesting to follow, and I think maybe it's the shorter hitters who are more comfortable like hitting to a number and hitting a good wedge into some of these scoring par 5s where the bombers might not play as strategically. Just a thought, but I would say in general, approach play is massive here. Whenever you're playing highly exposed winds, you want the purest ball strikers in the field who are hitting it square and able to flight it into the wind. I want to look at players who play well, not only here, but other coastal resort courses, other courses where there's just persistent wind throughout everywhere, and you need to flight it down and be creative with your ball striking. I guess that's what Chad Ramey is. I guess that's what Joel Damon is. He's played well in Texas for a while now, so I think that's a little bit of a narrative for sure. Graham McDowell, I mean, an Irishman who's played well in Europe. So yeah, just guys who play well in conditions in general, because it's a daunting task when the wind is blowing. And it's going to be a tough test even for an opposite field event. When you look at the winning scores here, which I don't have in this article yet, but it's not a birdie fest by any means. I think it's usually low teens is your winner, and again, that's mainly due to the wind. The wind is this course's best defense, but unlike a Kapalua, it is windy all the time in Punta Cana. It is always blowing. Even on a calm day, it is always blowing. So you can count on the wind, and you can count on guys who play well in windy conditions to do well at this event. So just to summarize that, second shot course, distance sort of helpful, but not really that important. Approach, end all be all. You got to be a great approach player here. I want some touch around the green, especially on anywhere that has these like tight runoff. Tabletop greens like a Kapalua, like a Concession would be a good example of that. Memorial Park is a good example of that. Port Royal is a great example of that. So guys who have played well in those sorts of courses, I know a lot of them don't have strokes gained, but subjectively, can you scramble there? Even like these Australian players who play well in the sand belt seem to do well at this event. And Paspalum is kind of tough to handicap for, but I would say just if you putt well on slow greens, that will definitely translate here. So that is my experience and background of Corales Defined. So we will then move into a quick model that I did. This will be a pretty quick video. But with those key stats in mind, and this is definitely not as clean as the models usually are, but it's a double duty week. We've got a lot of golf to get through. So we make do. So looking at the model this week, priority on strokes gained approach, followed by putting on slow greens, Strokes gained around the green, scrambling gained, all important when you're playing in the wind to get up and down. You're going to miss these greens. Actually, speaking of that, the fairways are some of the widest on tour. The greens are oversized, and the greens of regulation percentage is still well below tour average. What that means is, one, the quality of field is not as good here, so they're just inherently going to miss a lot of greens. But two, the wind is blowing it off course. It's really such a win stat to see. To see such a low green and regulation percentage at this course, despite the generous fairways and the generous green sizes. It's all wind. The greens are not super fast, so it's not like you're hitting great shots that aren't going rewarded. But if you fan one at all, if you just catch a little slice on an approach shot, which I did plenty of times, it blows completely off course. So you got to be pure in your irons here, and if you're not, you got to be able to scramble. Par 4 scoring, just in general, that's more of like a recent form stat, but they are pretty evenly distributed. Bogey avoidance, again, you're going to miss a lot of greens, so scrambling kind of built into that. Strokes gained total as a recent form stat, course history, strokes gained in high winds, and then strokes gained on comp windy courses, which is that list of comp courses that I had laid out before. Then looking at the hole breakdowns, there's a lot of long par threes. All of them are over 200 yards. Most of them are over 225. So long iron play is important for that perspective. And then long par 5 scoring. So there's not a ton of 600 plus yard par 5s on the PGA Tour, but if you've had success on those, I think that's basically like a scrambling up and down from 75 yards kind of stat. These stats I just kind of included for reference, but tee to green, ball striking, strokes gained, short game, and off the tee are not in my model. Okay, so then looking at what the model spit out, number one overall is Cameron Percy, which is how you know this is an opposite field event. But he actually has great coastal event history, and he's had a pair of top 20s, I believe, in his last 3 starts. So hasn't been playing often, but has been playing well when he has. Thomas Dietrich, number 2. Wyndham Clark, a prohibitive favorite this week after getting pretty close last week. I think he's as short as 8-1, which I just cannot do for somebody who's never won a PGA Tour event before. But I mean, look at this. Look how far Wyndham Clark has come to be number 1 in a field in strokes gained approach. That is something scary to see for the rest of the field, because we know how good he is in all the other aspects of his game. But no, I will not be betting him at 8-1, even though we got a nice sweat from him last week. Some of these players are a little outdated. There have been a good amount of withdrawal. So Adam Schenk is not in the field anymore, which would make Aaron Badley number 4 in the model. Piercy 5, Patrick Rogers 6, Ben Martin 7, Matt Wallace 8, Ryan Moore 9. Jaeger is out, so Kevin Tway is number 10 in the model. It's not great. It is definitely a better field than the Puerto Rico Open. That ran opposite of the Arnold Palmer Invitational, which was over, I want to say, 130 field. This opposite field is half of that at the WGC match play. So you got guys in the 70s and 80s OWGR. Who are here, which gives it a little bit more depth at the top, albeit, a few of the top players have withdrawn. There's still, guys that you don't feel completely terrible about betting, and there's still a few numbers out here that I think are pretty palatable. So then we move on to who I bet this week. So 50-1 is what I got on Cameron Piercy. He's number 1 in the model. I'll try to pull up in the background, what his kind of stat profile looks like here. We'll bring that over. Cause you're probably thinking like Cameron Percy, number 1 in the model. What are we doing? But you look at what he's done. 16th at Valspar last week. That's impressive. A decent field. 12th at the Honda. Impressive. Decent field. Windy conditions, very good comp right here. To Corales. I don't even think I listed that in the initial list of comp courses, but it is in the model for windy courses where shorter hitters have done well. So that Honda performance is really impressive, really encouraging. At Bermuda, I think that's a good comp here. Top 40 is not too bad. Eighth at the Wyndham is a very good reference point. And then if we look at his past history at Corales, top 10 in each of his last 2 appearances here, including 4th last year. So plays the windy course as well. He's Australian. And that seems to be a thing that Australian players do well, is play well when it gets windy. So I don't bet Cameron Percy often for, I think, obvious reasons, but this might be the week for him. Next, we have Aaron Badley, who I got at 85-1, another Australian player with incredible short game, played really well at the Bermuda Championship as well. He could stay in it in a scrambling contest. He's not very good off the tee. That doesn't matter so much here. So yeah, I think 85-1 on a player who's had some pretty good results this year in a good course fit and a bad field is a great number. Ben Martin, I got him at 32-1. I think that is a fair number. He's number 1 in strokes gained total, which is this stat right here. Leading into this week, which goes to show you how weak the field is. But he played well at Pebble Beach. He had a top 20 there, cashed for us. That was like an 8-1 placement ticket. So, good graces, good vibes with Ben Martin. He was runner up here last year. It was very emotional after almost winning. You know how much a win would mean to him. He's on a similar drought to like a Chris Kirk, actually, where he's actually trending in better form this year than he ever has before. And if you look at somebody who is number 1 in strokes gained total over the last 36 rounds and number 2 in course history, 32-1 actually seems like a pretty good value. So I'll hop on that. We'll take our chances. Matt Wallace is next, also a top 10 player in my model. Got him at 28-1. He looked good last week at the Valspar. His approach and around the green game has been really solid. Recently, he's somebody who's won a bunch on the European Tour in these nasty conditions. Always known to be a very good wind player, has good numbers on the comp wind courses, which you can see. Well, I guess they're not the best, but he's top 40 in the wind. So just a player subjectively who, his best results have come in Europe in the difficult conditions, and he's had some pretty good results here as well. Not listed here because he was a late entry to the field, but I am going to be betting Akshay Bhatia. That's my boy. I've been rooting for him for 3-4 plus years throughout his amateur career. He's an easy guy to root for. Just got his indefinite temporary tour membership. I think that goes a long way here. It takes a weight off your shoulders that you don't have this pressure to perform week in, week out. But this is a very winnable field for him. He finished runner-up at the Puerto Rico Open in windy coastal resort conditions. This is a very different test than Cocoa Beach, but it just seems like Akshay, whenever he's like at risk to blow away in high winds because he weighs like 70 pounds, that's when he's most dangerous. You remember his kind of like hello world PGA Tour moment was when he hit every green in regulation in the opening round at the Pebble Beach Pro-Am a couple years ago. Was nearly first round leader last week at the Valspar Championship. And he might have been co-first round leader at the Puerto Rico Open. So somebody who knows how to go low, great iron player, rates out top 20 in this field when you adjust it and put him back in the Fields model. So he is definitely somebody to watch here. I love Akshay and I love this course now that I've played it. So that would be really awesome if he were to win here. Kyle Westmoreland, I put a little FOMO bet on him. He's not on the official card because he's just a player that I like to root for and not one that I really just endorse to play here. But I needed a bomber. I got too many plotters out here just in case something goes crazy. So I threw Kyle Westmoreland on the card, but he's close to 200-1, so not a serious bet. And speaking of DA points, you're probably wondering how did DA points get here? It must be the top 12 in strokes gained around the green and top 22 in scrambling. No, actually, when I played at Corales, my caddy was DA Points' caddy at the 2022 Corales Puntacana Championship. I was talking to my caddy. He's a local in Punta Cana, And I asked him so many questions about, do you go to the event? You got any inside tips? And he was like, yeah, I actually caddied in it last year. And I was like, oh, who'd you caddy for? And he was like, oh, you wouldn't know him. Just no, you wouldn't know him. And I was like, oh, try me. And he says DA Points. And I'm like, yeah, I do know DA Points. Good short game on that guy. So I promised him that I would bet him if he was in the field this week. He is, I believe, 1,500 to 1. So I've got that with an each way, just in case he finishes top 5 and doesn't take it down. But my man, if he's caddying again, I actually forget his name. But he gave me some good reads. He knows these greens. DA Point's gonna have that local knowledge. So he's my last bet on the card again. It's a personal bet. I wouldn't necessarily endorse it, but it would be fun if the 1,500 to 1 bet hit for us. Okay, so that is Corales. Thank you for indulging me. This is a passion event for me on the PGA Tour, having gotten to play it. Excited to watch it. I'm assuming that by the time we're out of group stage at the WGC match play, I'll probably be dead. Since I haven't had a ton of success betting that event in the past. But hopefully we double dip. Hopefully we have a double sweat on Sunday, and hopefully you found this video helpful for your Corales Puntacana bets. So yes, thank you for watching along, and best of luck with all of your bets this week.